my breath so I can walk. If I need some of your love again, give me more than I can stand. When my smile gets old and faded, wait around, I'll smile again. Shouldn't be so complicated. Just hold me and then, well, just hold me again. Can you help me? I'm bent, I'm so scared that I'll never get put back together. Keep raking me in, and this is how we will live, with you and me. Yes. If I couldn't sleep, could you see? Could you make me better off? Could you sympathize with my needs? I know you think I need a lot. I started out clean, but I'm jaded. Just falling, or just breaking the skin. Can you help me? I'm bent, I'm so scared that I'll never get put back together. Keep raking me in, and this is how we will live, with you and me. Start bending me, it's never enough till I feel all your pieces. Start bending me, keep bending me until I'm completely broken Shouldn't be so complicated. Just touch me and then, well, just touch me again. Can you help me? I'm bent, I'm so scared that I'll never get put back together. Keep raking me in, and this is how we will live, with you and me. Living without understanding, hell, I'll go there again. Can you help me? I'm bent, I'm so scared that I'll never get put back together. Yeah, you're breaking me in, and this is how we will live, with you and me.
Alright, welcome back to Bold Like a Leopard. There's good news today if you are a fan of liberty in Europe. It's not 100% good, but I guess we can take it. There's a lot of bad news going on in the world right now. I personally am not in the best of moods, so I don't think I'm going to be looking at the chat too much today. So the European election is what we're going to talk about. We're also going to touch a bit on the Dayton KKK rally, which is one of the biggest jokes that you could ever conceive of. And other issues, of course, maybe a little bit on the FISA declassification, and also, let me see what I also have here. Who's going to succeed Theresa May? We could see also this new current in Europe of, I would say, compromised Brexit or compromised Euroscepticism. It's going to be interesting. But first, I do want to talk a little bit about the way this channel is going to work for the time being. So this live streams I'm not going to announce beforehand because I'm not probably going to be doing that many. I don't necessarily see the value of them at the moment. It's not easy to grow on here anyway, and it's pretty frustrating on YouTube. And it's, I mean, I guess it's been just a very difficult past few weeks for me in terms of YouTube, and you put in a lot of effort and there's not much to show for it because of YouTube. So uh, if you go to my BitChute channel,
Well,
I have started to upload directly to it, and I'll just start uploading anything that I'm uploading directly. I'm going to put there. Live streams, probably not. It would just takes too long. But the fact is that YouTube does not appreciate people who want to create on the platform. That's why you'll see video. I don't even have any. I have like barely any subscribers on BitChute, but in some cases I get more views per video than I get on YouTube. And granted, I don't have a big audience on here either. But why would I be basically putting all this effort, research, editing onto these videos, and then YouTube essentially kicks you in the nuts? And they do that. I mean, I'm not trying to make myself this big martyr here, but you see people, Lauren Southern today, that's exactly what happened. I mean, I'm assuming there were no nuts to kick on her, but the fact is that she put in a lot of footwork over the past few months to make that documentary, and what are they doing? They're doing their best to keep her from succeeding. So yeah, BitChute, I will probably upload directly to BitChute, and instead of relying on them to mirror it, which are not doing very well either. And then also on Minds, I'll do notifications. So my plan is basically I'll upload at the same time. I'll have it public on BitChute, probably in the vicinity of the YouTube premiere. The one feature that I do like about YouTube still is that you can do these video premieres, which is okay, but it's not. I'd be lying if I didn't tell you that I'm I'm at my wit's end with YouTube, and it's not easy to put on a happy face about it. I just don't care anymore. Anyway, so next topic, we have the European Parliament election. It's already being spun as this victory in a manner of speaking for the European groups. If you look at the whole, they still have control over the European Parliament, because actually it's more than that. The 5 largest blocs in Europe continue to be these anti-Eurosceptic groups, the most powerful being the so-called conservative European People's Party group. They did lose a lot of seats. The other major pro-EU group is the Socialists the Socialists and Democrats. They also lost a number of seats. So neither of those parties did better this year, but they're still hanging around as the leaders. The one party that gained some of those people's seats is the Liberal Party, the Alliance of Liberals and Democrats, who are fronted by this freak show, Guy Verhofstadt. So they gained some seats, and this is a trend that you'll be seeing in Europe a bit when you're talking about what Eurosceptics are going to be organizing around. It's no longer acceptable to just be in favor of cooperation within the European Union. The people who are really for the EU from now on are going to be talking more about the need for full integrationism, the ending of European states' individual identities. So if you are a person who has, a deep attachment to your identity as, let's say, a Swiss, I don't think Switzerland's in the EU, but let's say Austrian, like an Austrian identity, it will be looked at askance by people like that, who will see that as a compromise of your commitment to European values. Meanwhile, that identity as a pan-European citizen among those people will take precedence over these notions of what capitalism is, what socialism is, what civil liberties are. Their whole idea will be to commit to integrating these countries into a massive super state. And that's what I think distinguishes the new crop of pro-European people from the ones that have led the continent up until now. Of course, they don't have total control yet. You can see they only have 67 seats, whereas, or so sorry, they have 107 seats now, whereas before they had 68. Now you're also seeing this spike in the green parties. Those parties are, of course, more dedicated towards the whole climate change crisis or lack thereof than they are to actually running their countries. That's what's going to be. I think what I'm trying to say is that this is not the end of the debate in Europe itself over what the future of the continent is. It's the beginning of a new problem, a new conflict, because you're going to see these eco-fascists, which I'll call them, the green groups, allied to these Euro identitarians like over here, and then these two groups up here, the so-called conservatives and the socialists, if you can call them that, they're not going to be as significant as they were before, because they don't stand for anything. They stand for just it's almost like they're like the branch manager at your bank during a robbery. At that point, the branch manager doesn't really have that much authority, does he? So the other major story, of course, is the Brexit Party, which I was more focused on personally. I just wanted to get some of the other stuff out of the way. The Brexit Party and the Lega, the league, the Italian league, whatever you want to call it. Let's go to Italy first. So for some reason they won't load the results because they're lazy as hell up on Wikipedia. So I don't know what to say. I don't know why they can't just get with it. But from the last news report that I saw, they had about 33%, and it's probably gone up significantly. Let's see if I can just find it on the. So there's this Politico. That what I think is they've done is that they've made these results pages harder and harder to interpret, because it's just more convenient for them, so they can sweep their defeats under the rug. I'm speaking about more the powers that be in Europe and their media allies than I am about the about the actual parties. So Salvini has increased to 28 seats. Prior to this election, his group had 5 seats. So that's pretty crazy if you think about it. That's a multiple of almost 6. The progressives have, I think they've lost a little. They've lost 12 seats. That's bad news for them. And you can see that the 5-star movement went down a bit, which is understandable. The real problem that I'm seeing right now is that there's this fight over what is more important, nationalism or sovereignty. And in my opinion, sovereignty is the first priority. Of course, sometimes you do want people who will take harder stances on issues that are beyond sovereignty. And that's what I want to talk about with respect to the UK. So let's go. Sorry if I'm using Wikipedia today, but some of these pages I was looking at just are kind of shitty, so I'm not going to use them. So you can see here that the Brexit Party it's almost won 30 seats, which is pretty crazy. And the Liberal Democrats, who are along the same current as the European, the Alliance for Liberals and Democrats in Europe, which is their bloc, they've also gained 15 seats. So I was watching Sky News earlier, and they were trying to spin it as if the collective wins of all of the Eurocentric parties was greater than that of the Brexiteers. So let's do a little counting here. Let's talk about the parties that actually have seats in the parliament. Let's go down to the results area. I see they haven't populated this either. Wikipedia is lazy today, aren't they? So, so we'll use this at the moment. I don't think that. I think these are the only one I don't see here. I know that Plaid Cymru, which is the Welsh party, they aren't on this list. So I know that they gained one seat, which is not that significant if you think about it. But the Brexit Party and the Conservatives make up 33 seats. The Liberal Democrats, so those we'll call the Brexiteers for now. The Liberal Democrats have 16. The Greens have 7. That makes 23. And then you have Nicola Sturgeon of the SNP with 3 seats. That brings them up to 26. And then let's add Plaid Cymru, which brings it up to 27. If you count Labour, this is a real problem. This is a problem with British politics. The Conservative Party is officially pro-Brexit, and they can't waffle as easily about it as the Labour Party. It's much harder to be openly against leaving the EU nowadays in the Conservative Party than it was 3 years ago, because the Remainers within the party have largely they've wilted and fallen apart, and some of them have left to join this ridiculous Change UK party, the Cuck party, and they're not going to be. Those people are probably going to fade away very, very fast. So the Conservative Party you can easily at least lump in for the moment with the Brexit Party, giving them 33. The Labour Party is a little harder because Jeremy Corbyn, in his eminent wisdom, this is why I don't understand the people who support Jeremy Corbyn. They always talk about, oh, he cares about the people and he cares about, the welfare. Bullshit. Somebody who cares about the people needs to be able to make a decision, and that's not what Jeremy Corbyn is about. He's straddled the fence for the past 3 years over whether Brexit is something that his party is going to pursue or something that it's going to resist. And then he talks about, oh, we need to make sure that we leave with a deal and that we don't have a crash out Brexit or whatever. This is a person who never supported membership in the European Union ever when he was a backbencher in Parliament. And nowadays he starts to pretend that he's all for economic stability or whatever. This guy's a communist. I mean, how facetious can you get when on the one hand you want to create this economic revolution in the UK that would probably be pretty painful and a lot of people would leave and there would be capital flight. And then on the other hand, you want to pretend that it would be some sort of shock reaction if Britain left a customs union. Okay, you have to pick one or the other. You can't on the one hand advocate for radical revolution and then on the other hand try to say, oh, I'm for stability, I'm for having the least pain possible, because he's a liar. And he's been a liar his entire career. That's what Jeremy Corbyn will give you. He'll give you no answers and a lot of talk. So that's my position on that. As for what's happened with some of these other parties, there was the whole row over UKIP and the milkshakes, which I didn't cover as much, but I think it is bad that UKIP didn't win any seats in the parliament. Farage's party, the Brexit Party, only goes so far in defending individual freedom. And in fact, you could probably make the case they don't care about it at all, because Nigel Farage during the election made a point of refusing to talk about anything on his party manifesto besides delivering Brexit. And maybe that was a successful strategy, and I can hand it to him for that. But you do have to wonder going forward what the real core belief system of Brexit Party will be if it has to run in a general election, which it looks like it could have to do it, unless the Conservatives can deliver a no-deal Brexit. The issues that UKIP was dealing with after Farage, retired are just as important as Brexit, and in the long run will probably be more important whether Britain leaves the UK or the EU or not, because you have this issue of whether you can criticize Islam. You have this issue of feminism. Today there was this hilarious episode that I saw on the Tim Pool channel, his Timcast channel, where this Labour MP, the same one, by the way, that Sargon of Akkad was arguing with Jess Phillips, the one that they make this big to-do about, oh, he said I wouldn't even rape her. So she went down to Birmingham and got into this ridiculous argument with this Muslim activist. So this is kind of funny. I wonder if there's actual audio of this. It seems like there could be. Yeah. This should be funny.
I think what is happening here, the worst thing about it, is that it's damaging.
Oh, Sargon's for like he's right. This woman is like repulsive.
The reputation.
Listen to that voice.
Peaceful and loving community that I have lived in my entire life.
So why on Saturday? Why on Saturday?
With all due respect,
with all due respect,
to protect the 700 children
there's
in this
600 children who have withdrawn. There are 600 children who have not turned up at school today.
That's I'm afraid.
No. That's 600 children. We've counted only 120 to 130. Now, first of all, you've had your say. With all due respect, how have you become so intolerant towards us when parents? Why has Sarah Hewitt Clarkson refused Nazir Afzal's mediation? Answer this question.
I mean, I know Nazir really well. I've known him for years.
That doesn't matter if you know him. We don't know him really well. We are just
acting. Can I just say that all of these things that you're saying are just simply not true?
So what's
agree with your protest. I'm not going to come down and join in your protest.
Why are you so aggressive? You're being so aggressive. You're just not giving us a chance.
I apologise if you find it an aggressive manner. Maybe if I...
Oh my God! So these are the people who consider themselves leaders of liberalism, which it's different from the liberalism that Sargon is talking about. Which I think it's pretty stupid that he chose that as the title of his movement, the Liberalists. Even though I know some of them, maybe come up with something a little bit more unique and not awkward sounding. But yeah, you can hear her just ranting on.
No, but if you were protesting,
you're not a parent at this school.
That's irrelevant. I'm an active member of the community. You have got parents here.
All I want to say to you,
I'm a legal guardian.
It takes an awfully
long time.
You're going to do
whatever you want to do.
All I want to say to you,
you're not a parent either.
Are you handling this?
You're not a parent. You're a member of the
community. You are damaging the reputation of the Muslim community.
You are damaging
on the side of the school.
You're not on the side of the
children have stayed at home. 600 children stayed at home today. 600. Okay, get.
Oh my God, that was horrible. It's almost like she makes you want to convert to Islam or something. So yeah, that's what's happening over there. So I think it's important to have someone somebody like Sargon of Akkad. Okay, you guys might think that he's a douche, and he might well be, but he's considerably better at confronting idiots who are ruining the British way of life than is this clown Jess Phillips, and she really is intolerable. It's unbelievable that people actually vote for people like that. But yeah, Sargon got crushed. If you saw the Medicare stream, Medicare really shredded him. I would probably say that Medicare is the vulture. The greatest vulture in internet history, and it's pretty funny. But I felt a bit bad for Sargon of Akkad. But what are you gonna do? The guy flew too close to the sun, and then he embraced the whole thing where, oh, I'm not gonna apologize, whatever. Look, I get it that you don't want to apologize. It doesn't mean you're gonna get elected, and it didn't work. And the other thing that happened was that also some of the other candidates, there were some. I had high hopes for these people, like Count Dankula and Robbie Thompson, the other guy who didn't run with UKIP. So those people are going to, they're not going to have electoral success because it's simply, we live in a world where being a genuine person doesn't really matter. You have to just be able to market yourself to the right people. And Nigel Farage knows how to do that. You can hate on it all you want, and I certainly think it's not enough what he's doing with respect to Brexit. He does have to address these societal issues of religion in the public square, and this retarded feminism that's going on in England. In 2017, I think it was either 2017 or 2018. I did a video regarding this article that was published in The Guardian, advising that warning labels on alcohol bottles that pregnant women shouldn't drink are sexist, and that they don't take into account that it's possible that birth defects only happen through excessive drinking among pregnant women, which it's one of the dumbest arguments I've ever heard, because how are you going to create a test case where you have women drink? And it's like these people are ridiculous. They just feel that telling people not to do something out of their own health, out of concern for their health, is discrimination. But then they want to tell people how to sit on the subway. They want to tell people how to wear their facial hair, how to judge the way other people wear their facial hair, whether women should shave their legs. They want to deconstruct social norms. But once you start to criticize them, it's like, no, they start to put on their bishop's hat and preach to you. So yeah, I think it's not enough to have someone like Nigel Farage in there. Hopefully, in the long run, he has that Ann Whitcomb woman. Maybe she'd be a little more aggressive concerning some of those social issues. Of course, he also needs an economic agenda. I'm sure he could probably cobble one of those together. It's a good day if you're British. It's a good day to really wallow in the misery of some of these Remoaners who, they knew this was going to come, but they never prepared. And now it's like the floodwaters are rising and they have no fucking ark. So let's see if there's any interesting people out there. Nope, just Ryu. Anyway, so that's a tribute to you, buddy. NBC wrote this stupid piece saying the extreme right will likely grow in the European Parliament, but don't panic yet. So what the fuck is CSIS? Anyway, they had some sort of globalist crap shooter over here saying, over the weeks leading up to the European Parliament elections that started Thursday and continued through Sunday, there has been a great deal of media focus on the rise of the European far right. However, we should avoid the temptation of overinterpreting the election returns once they come in. Yes, far right parties will make some gains in some countries, but the results will likely show more continuity in European political trends than deep change. Far-right parties will likely do very well in Hungary, Italy, and possibly in France, but there could also be a quote, Brexit effect, a realization among voters jolted by the United Kingdom's vote to leave the European Union that European unity cannot be taken for granted, prompting them to turn out in support of pro-EU parties. So this is what I was talking about with the spinning. So they take this, they interpret this rise of 15 seats for the Liberal Democrats as evidence of a rise in support for opposition to Brexit, or rather a support for a second referendum. If that second referendum were to occur, you would probably see a complete collapse of some of these parties in terms of support. That's really what people don't understand is that a people's vote, as they're calling it, is essentially telling people that they were drunk the first time that they went to the polls. It's telling people it's telling people that we didn't get the answer that we asked for, and now that we have your attention, we're telling you how to vote. And if you look at the way it's reflected with these other parties, the Labour Party and the Conservative Party, they didn't gain much from that. They lost so much that they're now considered in danger of losing a number of seats in the Westminster Parliament, the actual British UK Parliament. And if you look at the map over here, let's take a brief look. In all of these states, all of these zones, the Brexit Party was able to get at least the largest share of the vote, except for London. Okay, in London, they only got 2 seats, whereas the Liberal Democrats got 3. But if you look at over here, the east of England, they got 3 seats, whereas the other parties got the rest of them, 4 seats. So it's a total of 4 seats for pro-Brexit parties, because one of them here you can see is the Conservatives. Over here in the southeast, they also got 4 seats, plus, if you count Conservatives, that's 5 out of 10 seats. And if you really want to split hairs, Labour technically counts as Brexit, because they say they are. Okay, don't split. I'm telling you, if you really want to look at the parties and their manifestos, the Labour Party has promised Brexit. Therefore, meaning if they support a second referendum, it means that they've lied for the past 2 or 3 years. Which then if they do openly support a second referendum, which is what we're going to get at soon, the future of the UK, I think Labour's support would collapse even further. You see some of these other zones, they did very well in Wales. They got 2 out of 4 seats. The rest of them going to Plaid Cymru, and the last one is the Labour Party, and then this is Labour. This is the South West. So all of these zones they did pretty well in, and yet people want to say, oh, I was hearing it the whole evening. Well, Vince Cable and the Liberal Democrats, they got more and more seats. It's not going to matter. All right, because you have these Remainers they are divided. They don't have a single person to unite around. Are they going to unite around Jeremy Corbyn? Of course not. In fact, they're so angry with Jeremy Corbyn at the moment that I suspect that he could face another pathetic attempt to remove him within the Labour Party. It's not even. I think he would still survive, but it would harm the Labour Party as a whole. And then the Conservatives, of course, are a shambles, and they're probably going to get a hard Brexiter in Boris Johnson as the Prime Minister. Says here, in reality, these are 28 separate elections held among 350 million eligible citizens across the entire continent. They determine who will represent these countries in the 751-member European Parliament, which regulates much of the EU's economic life, as well as funds European defense infrastructure projects and development assistance. But they are heavily influenced by domestic politics and issues. Let me see here. So it says, are you worried about the growing support for far-right parties in Europe? Let's just go to here. So I guess yes, we have a lot of NBC people are saying yes, we are worried. We're very worried because we can't continue to jet set over to Spain and eat trout over there, whatever the hell they do. They probably don't even have trout in Spain. I'm just screwing around. Paella. That we can't spend our retirement funds on paella as easily as we used to. That's probably the attitude over in the minds of NBC viewers now. So yes, we are seeing this collapse of the European establishment here. That's why this clown who works for the Center for Strategic and International Studies has to write this long diatribe or whatever. Look, and this is a person who worked in the Bush administration. Okay, that's how we're having people. Is that any? Do you need any more evidence that the pro-European crowd is made up of members of the establishment in the so-called right and the left? That you have Bush administration officials that are writing, these. I guess these these long, mournful attempts to assuage people's concerns. So then you have they're talking about Boris Johnson here, and they're calling him a disheveled, divisive populist. Johnson is the bookmaker's favorite to take over as leader of the ruling Conservative Party. I think Boris Johnson is a clown. And the idea here, and this is an excellent example. So anybody who thinks that he'd be a better leader than Farage of the British government is an idiot. Boris Johnson just likes to go again in front of the camera and act a fool and whatever, and be like a jolly dude. And I guess maybe it's because people want to have somebody happy. They want to have somebody happy in power. I think it's ridiculous. But I guess it's going to happen. It says here in 2015, when President Donald Trump said parts of London had been radicalized, American-born Johnson, who was the city's mayor at the time, replied that the president's ill-informed comments are complete and utter nonsense. Well, I guess you showed him, Boris, right? He added, crime has been falling steadily in both London and New York, and the only reason I wouldn't go to some parts of New York is the real risk of meeting Donald Trump. Fast forward to last year, and the two were exchanging pleasantries, with Johnson saying there were many reasons for, quote, admiring Trump, and the president declaring Johnson is, quote, a friend of mine, and backing him to be the next prime minister. There were also reports he had been talking privately with Trump's former senior advisor, Steve Bannon. Yeah, I mean, I don't really see what's the appeal of him. Johnson, full name Alexander Boris de Pfeffel Johnson, is among that rare club of politicians instantly recognizable by one name only, Boris. Born in New York's Upper East Side, he held U.S. citizenship until 2006. He was educated at Eton, Britain's most prestigious private school, and Oxford University before starting a career in journalism in the 1980s, but he was soon fired by the Times of London for making up a quote. He later joined the Daily Telegraph as a Brussels correspondent, which still pays him £275,000 per year on top of his lawmaker's salary for a weekly opinion column. Johnson is known for causing outrage with quips and turns of phrase that have been described as racist. In 2016, he called President Barack Obama part Kenyan. Well, what's so racist about that? His dad was Kenyan, and suggested he had an ancestral dislike of the British Empire. In 2002, he said that Queen Elizabeth II probably enjoyed touring the Commonwealth because of... So I can't read that because I'm going to get a strike, unlike Boris Johnson. Yeah, I think Boris Johnson would be a bad prime minister, and you guys can object if you want to. Some people will take any pile of slop that's put in front of them. I think that people should pass, and I hope that eventually they do get an election where, Farage gets elected into the parliament, and they have to do a hard Brexit, and eventually, that's the thing. It can't just be about Brexit. It has to be a more substantial change in British society, and the Brexit Party could be a vehicle for that, but we don't see it yet because they don't have an actual manifesto in it. So Farage still has to prove himself. I think Boris Johnson is too much of just an ass to really trust. And I do wish that Carl Benjamin had been elected. It would have been a much... look, it's not like this is a bad news all around when you see a result like this. In fact, you could probably say the best indicator of how good things went was that both Labour and the Conservatives flopped completely. But it's still not going to be enough. So just a few more stories before I end for tonight. I live in Ohio, and we used to have people show up every year. There was a Klan rally downtown. I live in the Cleveland area, so there used to be a Klan rally, and there'd be like 7 or 8 people behind a fence, and like 500 people on the other side. And you can see it's the same thing over here in Dayton. People think that Ohio is some sort of just this giant block of hicks and meth addicts and stuff like that. But no, even in Dayton area, there's a huge population of black people. There's actually a town. I'll show you where it is on the map. So it's called Xenia, Ohio. So if you look here, Xenia is down in this area, and I think Dayton would be over here, but Xenia is a town in the middle of nowhere that's virtually all black people. I drove through there one time, and you know, I can attest to that. So yeah, I think Dayton is right over here. It's one of these 2 counties. So what I'm trying to say is that there's this misconception around the world that there's this flaring up of far-right, racist far-right people in this country, and I don't see it. In fact, I watch channels that are dedicated to it, either that they are themselves far-right or that they cover it, and I think that it's a waste of time. There was recently one of these far-right politicians, Paul Nealon, was banned from Facebook, and I started to question, really what's the point? Because Paul Nealon's been just an abject failure since he, especially, I mean, before that, it's not like he was a rousing success. In 2016, Paul Nealon ran for Congress. In fact, let's pull this up. It might be on Wikipedia. So you can see his electoral history. In 2016, he got 15% of the vote in his primary against Paul Ryan. In 2018, when he'd come out as a open he was a racist. He hated Jews. Very, very, very anti-Jewish guy. He came in 3rd place with only 11% of the vote. He got 4,000 less voters, and he was virtually neck and neck with 2 other no-name challengers. So no, I don't think that the far right is prospering at all in this country. In fact, I would probably wager that in the next couple years, you're just going to see a lot of fracturing, and some of them will go in one direction. They'll go more into the whole, ideology of National Socialism, or just open outright racism, and then others will probably they'll be more into some sort of anarchist iteration. They'll be more into like the crypto thing, and people, for example, like James Alsop. I watched James Alsop's channel. I don't think his channel is too bad in terms. I think he does a good job of putting his content out, but the fact is that I don't see him becoming one of these people that's drilling out in the mountains of Wyoming with these militias. I think that a lot of these people, I mean, I could be wrong. Maybe some of you are more diligent viewers of his channel or something, but I think some of these people will probably resort to some more pedestrian ways of expressing their views. Things like advocating for cryptocurrencies and talking about ways to influence electoral politics, things like that, or and in fact, I think his channel is more dedicated towards that, how to change your college campus, which I don't really agree with I probably wouldn't agree with most of James Alsop's views, but the thing is that these people were driven to the place that they are by media abuse. The media abused these people. They isolated them. They tried to make their lives more and more difficult in terms of finding employment it's similar to what's happened with InfoWars and what's happened to Laura Loomer. They just happen to be of a much more they happen to be of an explicitly racial persuasion. So yeah, I think that they were brought to the brink, but I don't think that all of these people who consider themselves to be far right are actually going to, put on these robes and march around in Dayton, because it's clear that it didn't really have any effect. Let's see if we can hear some of this. This is another thing I want to talk about before we have one more story after this. In Ohio, the police are not looking to let things get out of hand. So you saw there were mounted deputies in that previous frame. They put up this fence over here. They did that when the Klan came downtown here. They put up a lot of chain link fence so that if people wanted to get into altercations, they had to go through all these barriers, and by the time they'd climbed the fence, the cops had probably, dragged them down and beaten the shit out of them. So every time the Klan came up here, virtually nothing happened. It was so boring that the reporters would probably leave after like 15 minutes. And that's exactly that's why this news story was such a joke. It's the same thing that happened to the Unite the Right rally in 2018, that you had these idiots with Jason Kessler who, there were all of 26 or 27 of them showed up and marched in Washington, D.C. But in fact, I think a few of them happened to be black people, and there just seemed to be zero enthusiasm for it. There's more enthusiasm for people who are anti-racists than there are for the people who themselves are self-identified white nationalists or white supremacists, whatever it may be. There's just no enthusiasm behind them. So yeah, I think it's just part and parcel of the way that the media's inflated this issue. Somebody asked, MC was asking, where's Antifa? Here in Ohio, I don't know if Antifa is that big of a presence. It might be that, they had to go for their ass waxing or something, but I don't necessarily see Antifa around here. It could be that they Ohio is a very politically apathetic state. People don't get they get passionate about two things here: gun rights, and some people get passionate about abortion, but even that is not too frenzied. I would say Ohio is one of the least politically charged states in the country, and that's why it's so easy for people. Like, we had John Kasich, who was the governor for 2 terms. It was largely, I think, because people had no interest in really mounting any sort of movement against him. He wasn't that good of a governor, but he also wasn't a complete disaster. And the people who were opposing him were also, they put really like a half-assed effort at it. They nominated a guy named Ed Fitzgerald to be the opponent in 2014, and the guy was just a clown. Nobody took him seriously. Ohio State football, yeah, certainly. I mean, people care about that. That's true. Last story was, we discussed something about this last week. It wasn't exactly the same thing. Last week, if you saw one of the videos that was posted in the morning concerning New York City schools, there was this sensitivity training that a number of administrators had to go through, plus at least 4 of them, who were white women, were demoted for no other reason than the fact that they were white. So I saw this earlier. It says, in controversial implicit bias training, New York City's public school educators have been told to focus on black children over white ones, and one Jewish superintendent who described her family's Holocaust tragedies was scolded and humiliated, according to first-hand report accounts. A consultant hired by the city Department of Education told administrators at a workshop that racial equity means favoring black children regardless of their socioeconomic status, sources said. And it goes on. If I had a poor white male student and I had a middle-class black boy, I would actually put my equitable strategies and interventions into that middle-class black boy, because over the course of his lifetime he will have less access and less opportunities than that poor white boy, the consultant Darnisa Amanti is quoted as saying by those in the room. That's what racial equity is, Amante explained. So Mona Davids, president of the NYC Parents Union, was appalled. It's completely absurd. They want to treat black students as victims and punish white students. That defeats the whole purpose of what bias awareness training should be, said Davids, who's like, I want to ask the question, what the hell is it supposed to be? I mean, they have to make up something. Anti-bias and equity trainings are about creating high expectations and improving outcomes for all of our students, Mantell said in a statement. These trainings are used across the country because they help kids, and out-of-context quotes and anonymous allegations just distract from this important work. The DOE's bias training, a $23 million mandatory program for all DOE employees, has irked some administrators, teachers, and parents who contend parts are ugly and divisive. 4 white female DOE executives demoted under Carranza's new regime plan to sue the city for racial discrimination. So that was last week's story. So Richard Carranza had apparently demoted these people just because they were white, which is, well, maybe they were doing bad jobs too, but you can't use a pretext of their race. So I guess we'll have to figure out if the story was true or not. At a monthly superintendent's meeting in the spring of 2018, shortly after Carranza's arrival, members were asked to share answers to the question, what lived experience inspires you as a leader to fight for equity? One Jewish superintendent. So this was a funny example. Not so funny if you were her, but it's funny to see the way people react when they get the answers that they asked for and they still don't like it. One Jewish superintendent shared stories about her grandmother Malka, who was told of bombs falling in Łódź, Poland, and running from the Nazis in the wee hours by packing up her 4 children and hiding in the forest, and her grandfather Naftali, who spent nearly 6 years in a labor and concentration camp where he witnessed the brutal execution of his mother and sister. My grandparents taught me to understand the dangers of targeted racism or the exclusion of any group and the importance of equity for all people. This is my core value as an educator, the superintendent told colleagues. At the break, I stood up, and to my surprise, I was verbally attacked by a black superintendent in front of my colleagues. She said, "This is not about being Jewish. It's about black and brown boys of color only." So black and brown boys of color only. Wow, I guess so. That's how. So I guess black girls are not discriminated against either. You better check yourself. I was traumatized, this Jewish educator said. It was like 1939 all over again. I couldn't believe this could happen to me in NYC. Yeah, that's some hyperbole there. However, 2 other superintendents, one black and one Dominican, defended the Holocaust comments as valid and vouched for their colleague as one who fights to level the playing field for all students. So this paragraph here is a mystery. It doesn't say whether they were supporting the black superintendent or the Jewish one. So it's going to be interesting. In Manhattan, a middle school teacher with her own kids in public schools said the DOE training is a catalyst for hate and division. I have colleagues who won't participate during, quote, courageous conversations, the DOE protocol for implicit bias workshops, because they don't feel safe. She cringes at training phrases like, quote, replacement thinking and replacement thinking. Oh my God. I forgot that was in here. And the disdain for whiteness. How are you supposed to go and tell people like James Alsop or Vincent James of the Red Elephants? Those people, you watch their channels, and yeah, some of the stuff they say is a bit off the cuff and yeah, directed, like pointed and certainly critical of blacks and Jews and whatever. But I don't think that I've ever seen a video of theirs where they try to be unfairly critical. So how are you supposed to tell them not to look at a story like this and then say that it validates their talk about Agenda 21, or I think that's what it's called, or some of these other theories about these elites trying to replace white people? And this is coming from me. I personally, I don't care about the whole issue of identities and racial things and all that. I have no problem with interracial marriages or relationships. I'm technically the product of one, because my mom was Middle Eastern. So I have no problem with it. But some of these people, when you see that being forced down people's throats, that certain types of people are worse than others by virtue of this oppressor and oppressed dichotomy, then yeah, I think that's one of the reasons that channels like that have a lot of dedicated watchers and listeners. So then there's this quote says, "My ancestors were enslaved and murdered because of their religion. I am now being forced to become, quote, liberated from my whiteness. I am being persecuted because of the circumstances of my birth. I was not aware that I needed to be liberated from how God created me." Despite Carranza's contention that those who complain about the training need it the most, she said, "I will never be brainwashed by Richard Carranza and his minions. I cannot support a school's chancellor who is implicitly biased against me and my children." Emboldened by his support, some of Carranza's top managers openly use the expression "disrupt and dismantle" as a new battle cry for equity. In her training session in February 2019, Consultant Amante told DOE higher-ups to face the fact that issues of race, power, and privilege will rise to the forefront and shake things up. Through this process of moving toward racial equity, we will have to pull layers back on who we are. You are going to have to talk about your power and your privilege. You will need to name your privilege, Amante is quoted as saying. She also warned that jobs in the new climate may be shaky. You are going to have to acknowledge that you will have to step back. You might fear losing your job. When we get to true racial equity, you'll have to define new institutional policies. This might feel dangerous because you're going to have to talk about race daily. And then it goes into, this is something I went over earlier. Amante is a Harvard lecturer, and she has this organization called Disruptive Equity Education Project. And then the other one is, there's another person who does the same thing, contracted with New York City schools. His name is Glenn Singleton, and he's the author of Courageous Conversations, which includes a critique of the white supremacy culture, which has a $775,000 contract. And then it says, some parent leaders support Carranza's campaign. We agree with the chancellor that those who do not see the value in this work are the ones who must look inward harder, said Shino Tanikawa, a parent in Manhattan's District 2 and member of Mayor de Blasio's School Diversity Adversity Group. This work requires everyone, including people of color, to look inward and confront prejudices we all harbor. For some of us, this work also requires us to acknowledge the privilege bestowed upon us by the power structure. It creates a great deal of discomfort, but that is the nature of the work. Disrupting the system is difficult and sometimes painful. So this is the essence of how Maoism and its offshoots, its social offshoots work. They get people to start to say, well, this is the whole issue. We have to be self-critical, and self-criticism makes us more committed to the goal. But the goal doesn't actually make people's lives better. The goal actually does more to entrench a new power structure that is dedicated to its own self-preservation. So that's about it for today. Tomorrow morning, of course, it's Memorial Day, so I hope those of you that have lost friends and family to the wars, or you have perhaps one of your ancestors was, I hope it's a meaningful day. Certainly, I think we're fearing more and more of these new wars that could happen. What's happening with Iran at the moment, and You know, last month it was with Venezuela. So I think it's going to be a very interesting situation coming forward. So I think Memorial Day is a good place to think about it. I don't know if I'm going to do any videos about that. I am going to do a video, probably producing it soon, about Mike Gravel. I hope to debut it tomorrow morning, which would be today. And that would be another candidate profile, would be the 12th one. And like I said, if you want to be able to follow the channel a little more closely and you're not getting notifications, the best way is to subscribe now on BitChute, because I am going to be uploading simultaneous to YouTube and probably premiering it at this. It's not going to be a premiere the same way it is on YouTube, but publishing it at the same time or around the same time. Minds.com also. Let me pull up my Minds.com.
Cause. Raise money for...
Second. So here we go. So you can find me at Chef Leopard. Also, I started a group. So if you want to... Let me see here. Maybe I could tweet out some sort of whatever. So just follow me on Minds at Chef Leopard, and then I can add you to the group. And that's where, for one thing, I'm going to post all my videos there. You can also post your own shit. I will say I'll probably delete crap that I think is retarded, and I reserve the right to define retarded any way I want. So there's probably people in the audience right now that I know are going to put retarded crap up there if they get into the group, and I'll have fun deleting it. But yeah, so in any case, yeah, those are the best ways to follow me if you're not getting notifications. Other than that, I'll talk to you guys later. Have a great night, and yes, rule Britannia. Thanks to Nigel Farage for winning. I mean, it wasn't the greatest result ever because other people I wanted to get in didn't get in. But yeah, definitely for him, great night, as well as for Matteo Salvini in Italy and across the continent. Yeah, maybe we could do a little more of analysis at a different point. But until then, please subscribe, like the video, share the video. Also, please subscribe to me on BitChute. That's at Chef Leopard. The title of the channel is also, yeah, it's just Chef Leopard. You can subscribe to me on Gab at Starscream85. If you want to contribute with your money, it's Subscribestar at Chef Leopard, and also on Minds at Chef Leopard. And let's just, yeah, Dave McDowell, thanks. You know, I'll call you guys names. I wasn't in the best mood, but, you know, I think I got over it. So, Dave McDowell, Desert Mav, Zatoichi's Cane Sword, MC, Debbie Thinks, Ryu Shiska. That's about it. I'll put the music on again, and I'll talk to you guys later.
If I fall along the way, pick me up and dust me off. If I get too tired to make it, be my breath so I can walk. If I need some of your love again, give me more than I can stand. When my smile gets old and faded, wait around, I'll smile again. Shouldn't be so complicated. Just hold me and then, well, just hold me again. Can couldn't sleep, could you see? Could you pay me better off? Could you sympathize